Commander Zefka pressed his clawed fingers against the bio-neural console and watched the blue planet spin slowly below. The third world of this system held creatures that walked on two legs and built crude structures from metal and stone. His species had been watching them for 3 full cycles now, and the reports always said the same thing. These humans were violent and primitive. They fought wars over resources and land. They poisoned their own air and water. The Galactic Council had marked them as a Type 2 civilization, which meant they barely understood how to leave their own planet. The observation station hung in space like a metal flower with sensors pointed toward Earth. Zefka commanded 47 crew members from 6 different species. All of them agreed that humans were not ready for contact with the galaxy. The creatures below still used chemical rockets to reach their moon. They had nuclear weapons but no understanding of quantum mechanics or faster-than-light travel. The Council would let them develop for another 1,000 years before making contact. Zefka turned away from the display and walked to his private quarters. His shift ended in 2 hours, and he looked forward to sleep. Tomorrow would bring the same routine of watching and recording. The humans would continue their small conflicts and limited space exploration. Nothing would change because nothing ever changed with primitive species. Far below on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's most advanced warship. The TCS Vengeance stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull gleamed with adaptive armor plating that could absorb energy weapons and deflect kinetic rounds. Hidden beneath the surface lay quantum drive systems that could fold space itself. The ship represented 30 years of human engineering and determination. Jake had commanded the Vengeance for 2 years. He was 41 years old with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands from his early days as a fighter pilot. His crew of 800 came from 12 different nations. They all shared one goal, which was to push humanity further into space than ever before. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was 35 with short black hair and grease stains on her uniform. Lisa had designed most of the Vengeance's systems herself. She approached Jake and handed him the pad. "The readings show we're ready for the Jupiter mission," she said. "All systems are running at peak efficiency. The quantum drive has been tested 50 times. We can make the jump whenever you give the order." Jake studied the data. 3 months ago, Earth's deep space sensors had detected strange energy patterns near Jupiter's orbit. The signals appeared artificial, but no human ship operated in that region. The patterns repeated every 72 hours like a beacon or communication system. High Command wanted answers. Navigation Officer Danny Brooks turned from his station. Danny was 28 with red hair and nervous energy. He had plotted jump coordinates for dozens of missions, but this one felt different. The energy signatures didn't match any known human technology. "Sir, the jump coordinates are locked in," Danny said. "We can reach Jupiter space in 6 hours. The quantum drive will put us exactly where the signals originated." Jake nodded and looked around his bridge. His crew had trained for this moment. They were humanity's finest explorers and warriors. If something waited for them near Jupiter, they would be ready for it. "Execute the jump," he ordered. The Vengeance shuddered as its quantum drive activated. Space twisted around the ship like folding paper. Stars stretched into lines of light. Then everything snapped back to normal. Jupiter hung before them like a giant orange marble. Its great red spots swirled with centuries of storm activity, but something else was there too. Lisa stared at her instruments with wide eyes. "Sir," she said quietly, "we're reading massive energy outputs from grid reference 77 Alpha. Whatever's out there, it's big and it's definitely not natural." Jake felt his heart rate increase. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Today they might get their answer. On the observation station, Commander Zefka jerked awake as emergency alarms filled his quarters. He ran to the command center where his crew worked frantically at their stations. The main display showed a large vessel appearing from quantum space. Its design was unlike anything in Council databases. Science Officer Veltar spoke without looking up from her console. "Commander, the vessel measures 2.1 kilometers in length. Its hull composition includes materials we don't recognize. Energy readings suggest a quantum displacement drive of unknown design." Zefka felt his blood turn cold. The humans weren't supposed to have quantum technology. They barely understood chemical propulsion, yet here was proof that they had somehow developed faster than light travel. "Can they detect us?" he asked. "Our cloaking field remains active," Veltar replied. but their sensors are more advanced than our projections indicated. They're actively scanning this region. Aboard the Vengeance, Jake studied the tactical display. His ship's sensors had found something in space near their position. The object was roughly cylindrical and nearly invisible to normal detection methods. Only the quantum signatures gave it away. Danny spoke from his station. "Captain, I'm reading artificial gravity fields and life support systems. Whatever that thing is, it's definitely occupied." Lisa added her own observations. "The hull design uses metamaterials that bend light around the structure. It's a cloaking device, but our quantum sensors can see right through it." Jake made his decision. "Open a communication channel to that vessel," he ordered. "Let's see who our neighbors are." The message went out on multiple frequencies using every protocol in human databases. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran colonial ship Vengeance. Unknown vessel. Please identify yourself and state your intentions in this system." Zefka watched his communication officer receive the transmission. The message came in the primitive languages of Earth. Somehow the humans had found his station and were demanding answers. His mandibles clicked with nervous energy as he realized the magnitude of this situation. The humans had not only developed quantum travel, but had actively sought out and located a council observation post. Everything the council believed about this species was wrong. They weren't primitive. They were dangerous. "Sir, what are your orders?" the communication officer asked. Zefka knew that first contact protocols required him to maintain the non-interference directive, but the humans had already detected his station. The secret was out. "Send a response," he said finally. "Tell them they have violated restricted space and must withdraw immediately." The message reached the Vengeance within seconds. Jake read it twice before showing it to his senior staff. The aliens claimed authority over human space and demanded their immediate departure. The message also contained technical data that proved these beings possessed technology far beyond human capabilities. But Jake had not come this far. To be turned away by threats, he activated the ship's communication system and sent his reply. "Unknown. Vessel, you are in violation of Terran space. Identify yourself immediately or face the consequences." The words that would change galactic history had been spoken. Humanity had announced itself to the universe, and the universe would never be the same. The tension on the bridge of the TCS Vengeance could be cut with a knife. Captain Jake Morrison stood with his hands behind his back as he waited for the alien response. His crew worked quietly at their stations, but everyone felt the weight of this moment. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, and their first conversation with alien life had not gone well. Communications officer Rachel Davis turned from her station with a worried expression. "Captain, the alien vessel is powering up some kind of weapons system. Energy readings are increasing rapidly across their hull." Jake felt his jaw tighten. So much for peaceful first contact. He had hoped the aliens would be curious about humanity rather than hostile. It seemed the universe operated on the same principles as Earth. When different groups met for the first time, conflict usually followed. Tactical Officer Paul Johnson spoke from his station. "Sir, their weapons appear to be some form of directed energy system. The power level suggests they could damage our hull, but our adaptive armor should provide significant protection." Jake nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the captain. We are facing a potential hostile alien vessel. All departments report readiness for combat operations. This is not a drill." Throughout the ship, 800 crew members prepared for humanity's first space battle against an alien enemy. In engineering, Lisa Carter powered up the ship's defensive systems. The Vengeance had been built for exploration, but its designers knew that space could be dangerous. Hidden beneath the science equipment lay enough firepower to level a small city. On the alien observation station, Commander Zefka faced the most difficult decision of his career. Council protocols were clear about dealing with primitive species. First contact was forbidden until a civilization reached Type 4 status, which required mastery of quantum mechanics and peaceful relations with neighboring worlds. Humans clearly failed both requirements, but the human vessel showed technology that shouldn't exist. Their adaptive hull plating used principles that even Council scientists struggled to understand. Their quantum drive created space distortions that registered on sensors from millions of kilometers away. These creatures had somehow leaped from chemical rockets to advanced star travel in less than 50 years. Science Officer Veltar provided more disturbing news. "Commander, their weapon systems are activating. I'm reading multiple launch tubes loaded with kinetic projectiles. The projectiles appear to be solid metal moving at significant fractions of light speed. Zefka felt his alien equivalent of fear. Railguns were considered primitive weapons by Council standards, but they were also incredibly effective. A solid projectile moving at near light speed could punch through almost any defense. The fact that humans had developed such weapons suggested a mindset focused on destruction. Weapons Officer Kleknos spoke from his station. Sir, shall I activate the electromagnetic pulse array? One burst should disable their primitive systems and force them to withdraw. Zefka considered his options. The electromagnetic pulse would likely disable the human vessel without killing the crew. He could then claim the ship suffered a mechanical failure near Jupiter. The Council would never know about this encounter, and the non-interference directive would remain intact. Activate the pulse array, he ordered. Target their power systems and weapons. Minimal force only. The alien station generated a massive electromagnetic field that lanced across space toward the Vengeance. The pulse was designed to overload primitive electrical systems and shut down basic computers. It should have left the human ship dead in space. Instead, the pulse struck the Vengeance and simply disappeared. The human ship's hardened systems had been designed to survive nuclear warfare and electromagnetic attacks. Every circuit was shielded and every computer was protected against pulse weapons. The alien attack barely registered on the ship's sensors. Chief Engineer Lisa Carter laughed when she saw the readings. Captain, they just tried to shut us down with an electromagnetic pulse. Our systems didn't even notice it. Whoever they are, they don't understand human engineering. Jake felt a mixture of relief and anger. Relief that his ship was undamaged and anger that the aliens had attacked without further communication. He had hoped for peaceful contact, but the aliens seemed determined to fight. Return fire, he ordered. Target their weapon systems only. I want to disable them, not destroy them. The Vengeance's railguns activated with a sound like thunder. 6 solid projectiles launched from the ship's hull and streaked across space at 20% of light speed. The projectiles were simple chunks of tungsten metal, but they carried the kinetic energy of nuclear weapons. On the alien station, emergency alarms filled the air as the incoming projectiles appeared on sensors. The station's defensive shields activated automatically, but they were designed to stop energy weapons and guided missiles. No Council ship had used kinetic projectiles in over 1,000 years. The tungsten rounds struck the station's shields and punched through them like paper. 3 projectiles hit the station's hull and tore massive holes in the outer sections. Atmosphere vented into space as emergency bulkheads sealed the breaches. The station's main communication array exploded in a shower of sparks and debris. Commander Zefka picked himself up from the floor where the impact had thrown him. His command center was filled with smoke and the lights flickered from damaged power systems. Half of his crew lay unconscious from the shockwave and the rest worked frantically to keep life support functioning. Damage Control Officer Hexvon gave his report through the chaos. Sir, we've lost main communications and 3 weapons batteries. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12. Casualty reports coming in from all sections. Zefka stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ship had disabled his station with a single volley, using primitive kinetic weapons. The projectiles had moved so fast that his shields couldn't adjust to stop them. It was like being attacked by a species that had somehow made spears more dangerous than laser cannons. Emergency Communications Officer Pexdal managed to establish a backup link to the Council homeworld. Sir, I can send a priority message, but it will take 4 hours to reach High Command. Send it immediately, Zefka ordered. Tell them we have encountered the humans, and they are far more advanced than our projections indicated. Request immediate reinforcements and new contact protocols. Aboard the Vengeance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien station vent atmosphere and debris into space. His tactical display showed significant damage to the alien vessel, but no signs of complete destruction. The aliens were still alive, but they were no longer a threat. Open a communication channel, he ordered. Let's see if they're more willing to talk now. The message went out on the same frequencies as before. This is Captain Morrison. Your vessel is damaged and you have wounded crew members. We are prepared to offer assistance if you agree to peaceful communication. Zefka received the message and felt something he had never experienced before. These humans had disabled his station with ease, but were now offering medical assistance to their enemies. It was a combination of military efficiency and unexpected mercy that didn't fit any council. Profile of primitive species. He looked around his damaged command center and made a decision that would change galactic history. Accept their offer, he told his communications officer, and prepare a full data burst to transmit everything we've learned about humans to the Council. The Age of Secrets was ending, and the galaxy was about to discover that humanity was unlike any species they had ever encountered. The question now was whether the Council would see humans as allies or as the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the Great Chamber of Nexus Prime, 8 hours after Commander Zefka's distress signal reached the homeworld. Representatives from 215 species filled the massive circular hall that had witnessed 1,000 years of peaceful deliberation. Today the chamber buzzed with nervous energy as news of the human encounter spread through diplomatic channels. Representative Prime, Thekmol of the Centauri Federation, called the session to order with 3 sharp strikes of the ceremonial staff. His blue-scaled face showed the strain of organizing this gathering on such short notice. Behind him, holographic displays showed tactical data from the Jupiter incident along with projections of human military capabilities. The floor recognizes Representative Quindar of the Hegemony Navy, Thekmol announced. The chamber fell silent as the massive warrior stepped forward. Quindar stood 3 meters tall with 4 arms and natural armor plating that had evolved for combat. His species had provided military protection for the Council for over 5 centuries. Honorable representatives, Quindar began, his voice carrying across the chamber without amplification. We face an unprecedented crisis. A species we classified as barely capable of interplanetary flight has not only detected Council surveillance, but has engaged and damaged a military installation. Our projections were catastrophically wrong. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled delegates. Representative Silvera of the Andromedans raised one of her delicate hands for permission to speak. Her species had always advocated for peaceful contact with developing civilizations rather than the traditional isolation protocols. Perhaps this presents an opportunity rather than a crisis, she said. These humans have achieved remarkable technological advancement in isolation. They could bring fresh perspectives to our scientific endeavors. I propose immediate diplomatic contact. The suggestion sparked heated debate among the representatives. The Zephyrian Collective's delegate hissed his disagreement, while the peaceful Valdorians chittered nervously among themselves. Council protocols had maintained galactic stability for millennia, but they had never encountered a species that developed beyond their oversight. Meanwhile, in Earth's solar system, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the makeshift medical bay that had been established aboard the damaged alien observation station. Human medics worked alongside alien crew members to treat injuries from the railgun attack. The sight of different species cooperating fascinated him even as it raised troubling questions about how long humanity had been watched. Dr. Helen, Ross the Vengeance's chief medical officer, approached. Jake with a datapad in her hands. She was 43 years old with graying hair and gentle eyes that had seen too much combat. Helen had volunteered for this mission specifically because she believed humanity would eventually encounter alien life. Captain, the alien database we recovered is more extensive than we initially thought, she said. These beings have detailed records of human development dating back over 50 years. They've been monitoring our technological progress, our military conflicts, and even our cultural evolution. Jake felt anger building in his chest. The idea that aliens had been watching humanity like laboratory animals was deeply disturbing. Earth had struggled through wars and disasters while beings with advanced technology observed from space without offering help or interference. What else have you learned? He asked. Helen activated the data pad and scrolled through translated files. According to these records, we're part of something called the Galactic Council. Over 200 species belong to this organization, and they have strict rules about contact with developing civilizations. Humans are classified as Type 2, which apparently means we're considered too primitive for official recognition. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they discovered not only that aliens existed, but that they had been deliberately excluded from a galactic community. Earth had been quarantined like a disease. Communications specialist Ryan Clark approached with his own disturbing news. Captain, I've been monitoring alien communication frequencies and there's massive activity throughout this system. Multiple ships are heading toward our position from the outer planets. We're looking at what appears to be a significant military response. Jake turned toward the observation station's command center, where Commander Zefka waited under guard. The alien commander had agreed to peaceful negotiations after his station was disabled, but Jake suspected he knew more about the incoming threat than he was sharing. The conversation between human and alien took place in the station's main briefing room. Zefka sat across from Jake with his mandibles clicking nervously as automatic translators converted their words into understandable language. The alien's four eyes focused on Jake with an intensity that suggested both fear and curiosity. "Your fleet is approaching," Captain Zefka said without preamble. 12 dreadnoughts carrying enough firepower to sterilize a planet. The Council has decided that humanity represents a significant threat to galactic stability. Jake leaned back in his chair and studied the alien commander. "So we're dangerous because we developed technology without your permission," he said. "That seems like a flawed way to judge an entire species." "You don't understand," Zefka replied. "The Council maintains peace through careful control of technological development. Species that advance too quickly often become aggressive and expansionist. Your own history shows a pattern of violence and conquest." Jake couldn't deny that human history included plenty of warfare and aggression. But he also knew that humanity had learned from those conflicts and had begun to work together on a global scale. The construction of the Vengeance itself required cooperation between nations that had been enemies just decades earlier. "We've made mistakes," Jake admitted, "but we've also learned from them. Humanity has moved beyond simple territorial conflicts. We're explorers now, not conquerors." The alien commander's expression suggested he wasn't convinced. "The Council will not take that risk," he said. "Your species will be contained until you prove you can coexist peacefully with other civilizations. That process typically takes several thousand years." The casual mention of containing humanity for millennia sent ice through Jake's veins. These aliens planned to keep Earth isolated indefinitely, while they decided whether humans deserved freedom. It was the ultimate form of imprisonment disguised as protection. Their conversation was interrupted when Ryan Clark burst into the briefing room with urgent news. "Captain, the alien fleet has dropped out of quantum space at the edge of the system. 12 massive vessels just like the commander described. They're requesting our immediate surrender and withdrawal from this region." Jake stood and straightened his uniform. The time for diplomacy was ending and the time for action was beginning. Humanity had not crawled from caves to the stars just to be caged by alien bureaucrats who thought they knew what was best for other species. "Commander Zefka, you're about to witness something your council doesn't understand," Jake said, as he headed for the door. "Humans don't surrender when threatened. We fight harder." The alien commander watched Jake leave and felt something approaching fear. In all his years serving the Council, he had never encountered a species that responded to overwhelming force with defiance, rather than submission. The humans were about to face impossible odds, and their captain seemed almost eager for the challenge. Back aboard the Vengeance, Jake took his position on the bridge as his crew prepared for the fight of their lives. 12 alien dreadnoughts versus one human warship should have been no contest. But Jake had spent his entire career learning that humans were at their best when the odds seemed impossible. The real test of humanity was about to begin, and the galaxy was watching. Fleet Admiral Quindar stood on the bridge of the Council dreadnought Eternal Justice as his battle group approached the inner solar system. The massive warship stretched 4 kilometers from bow to stern and carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Behind him, 11 more dreadnoughts maintained perfect formation as they prepared to deal with the human threat. The Admiral's 4 arms worked at different control stations while his tactical staff provided updates on human positions. Intelligence reports suggested the humans possessed only 1 warship in the Jupiter region. Quindar expected to face a primitive vessel that would surrender immediately when confronted with overwhelming Council force. Instead, his sensors detected something impossible. 5 human warships had arranged themselves in a defensive formation that violated every principle of accepted military doctrine. The vessels moved in 3 dimensions, using the solar system's gravity wells and magnetic fields to mask their positions and intentions. Tactical Officer Vorkin approached with obvious confusion written across his alien features. "Sir, the human vessels are not following standard engagement protocols. They've spread across a volume of space that makes coordinated action impossible. Their formation appears designed for individual ship combat rather than fleet operations. Quindar studied the tactical display with growing unease. Council military doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower applied through coordinated fleet movements. Individual ships were expected to support the fleet rather than operate independently. The human formation suggested a completely different approach to space warfare. In the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Captain Steve Parker commanded the TCS Retribution as it drifted silently among the rocky debris. His ship's hull had been painted matte black to reduce sensor signatures, while passive scanners tracked the approaching alien fleet. Steve was 39 years old with the calm demeanor of someone who had commanded warships through 3 different conflicts. Engineering Chief Tom Wilson reported from his station. "Captain, all systems are running silent, but ready for immediate activation. We can go from stealth mode to full combat power in under 30 seconds. Steve nodded and continued studying the enemy formation. The alien ships moved like a single organism, with each vessel maintaining precise distance and bearing relative to the flagship. It was impressive, but it was also predictable. Human military thinking had evolved beyond such rigid formations during the naval wars of the 20th century. Above the solar, ecliptic Captain Julie Newton positioned the TCS Defiance where alien sensors would have difficulty detecting the ship's energy signature. Julie was 42 with short blonde hair and a reputation for innovative tactics that had earned her command of humanity's newest warship. Navigation Officer Carl Davis provided location updates as the alien fleet approached optimal engagement range. "Captain, we're in perfect position to execute the Neptune Gambit. The enemy formation will put their command ship directly in our firing solution." Julie smiled at the reference to humanity's most famous naval battle. The Neptune Gambit involved multiple ships attacking a superior enemy force from unexpected directions, while using terrain features to mask their approach. It had worked against human enemies, and it should work against aliens who thought in terms of traditional fleet engagements aboard. The TCS Vengeance Captain Jake Morrison coordinated with his fellow commanders through encrypted quantum communication links. The 5 human warships maintained radio silence while sharing tactical data and coordination signals. Each captain knew their role in the coming battle, and each ship was positioned to maximize damage while minimizing exposure to enemy fire. Dr. Helen Ross had completed her analysis of the alien databases, and the information painted a disturbing picture of galactic politics. The Council maintained control through technological superiority and the threat of overwhelming military force. Species that challenged Council authority were either absorbed into the system or eliminated as threats to galactic stability. "Captain, the aliens have never faced an enemy that fights like humans," Helen reported. "Their tactical databases show thousands of years of battles against species that use similar technology and doctrine. We represent something completely outside their experience." Jake understood the implications. Humanity's isolation had forced them to develop unique approaches to warfare and technology. While the Council had stagnated through millennia of unchallenged dominance, humans had continued to evolve and adapt. That difference might be enough to level the playing field despite the overwhelming numerical disadvantage. Fleet Admiral Quindar opened communication channels to the human vessels as his fleet reached optimal firing range. His message broadcast on all frequencies in multiple languages, while translation software converted his words into understandable human speech. "Human vessels, you are in violation of Council space and have committed acts of aggression against lawful Council operations. Surrender immediately and prepare to be escorted from this system. Failure to comply will result in the destruction of your ships and the quarantine of your home world." The response came not from one ship, but from all 5 human vessels simultaneously. Each captain delivered the same message with slight variations that showed coordination without centralized command. The words that came back would echo through galactic history. "This is humanity speaking, Quindar. We reject your authority over our species and our space. We claim our right to the stars, and we will defend that right against any who would deny it. You want to fight? Then come and take what you think is yours." Quindar felt his blood pressure spike as the human response reached his bridge. No species had ever rejected Council authority so directly. Even the most aggressive civilizations had attempted negotiation before resorting to violence. These humans seemed eager for combat despite facing impossible odds. He activated his fleet's weapons systems and prepared to demonstrate why the Council had maintained galactic peace for over 1,000 years. 12 dreadnoughts began charging their primary energy weapons while point defense systems came online to intercept incoming missiles and projectiles. The battle began when Captain Steve Parker fired the first shot from his position in the asteroid belt. The TCS Retribution launched a spread of railgun projectiles at near light speed, while immediately changing position to avoid return fire. The tungsten round streaked across space and struck the alien formation before sensors could properly track their approach. 2 projectiles punched through the shields of a Council dreadnought and tore massive holes in the ship's hull. Atmosphere and debris vented into space as emergency systems struggled to contain the damage. The alien vessel fell out of formation as its captain fought to keep his ship operational. Admiral Quindar watched in shock as one of his most powerful warships was crippled by primitive kinetic weapons. The human projectiles had moved too fast for his shields to properly deflect and carried enough energy to overwhelm his armor plating. It was like being attacked by a species that had somehow made arrows more dangerous than plasma cannons. Captain Julie Newton struck next from above the ecliptic. The TCS Defiance appeared from behind Jupiter's radiation shadow and launched a full spread of missiles at the alien flagship. The missiles used human stealth technology combined with adaptive guidance systems that confused alien point defense networks. Half the missiles were destroyed by defensive fire, but the remaining warheads reached their target and exploded against the Eternal Justice's hull. The explosions sent shockwaves through the massive ship, while electromagnetic pulses disabled several weapon systems. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Quindar faced an enemy that refused to fight according to established rules. The humans attacked from multiple directions using weapons and tactics that his databases had never encountered. Worse yet, they seemed to coordinate their actions without centralized command, which made predicting their next move nearly impossible. The Council fleet had expected to face 1 primitive warship. Instead, they found themselves fighting 5 advanced vessels commanded by warriors who understood that survival meant thinking differently than their enemies. The battle raged for 6 hours across the solar system, as human and alien forces engaged in humanity's first interstellar war. Admiral Quindar found his carefully planned fleet engagement turning into a chaotic series of individual ship duels that favored human tactics over Council doctrine. 3 of his dreadnoughts limped away from the battle zone with severe damage, while the human vessels continued to strike from unexpected angles. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the TCS Vengeance as his ship executed another impossible maneuver through Jupiter's upper atmosphere. The massive planet's gravity well and radiation belts provided cover, while allowing his weapons to target alien vessels from below their defensive formations. Human ships had been designed for 3-dimensional warfare, while alien vessels clearly expected to fight in the flat plane that most species preferred. Communications Officer Rachel Davis reported incoming transmissions from Earth as news of the battle reached the homeworld. Captain, we're receiving priority messages from Global Command. They want to know our status and intentions regarding continued engagement. Jake understood the concern. Humanity was fighting its first war against an alien civilization, and the outcome would determine Earth's future relationship with the galaxy. Victory would establish humanity as a force to be respected, while defeat might result in permanent quarantine, or worse. Continue the engagement, he ordered. Send a message to Earth that humanity will not surrender to alien threats regardless of the odds we face. Dr. Helen Ross approached with the latest intelligence gathered from captured alien databases. The information painted a complex picture of galactic politics that explained why the Council reacted so strongly to human independence. Captain, I've discovered something important about the Council's history, she said. They've maintained control for over 1,000 years by preventing any species from developing advanced technology without their oversight. The implications were staggering. The Council didn't just govern existing civilizations, but actively suppressed technological development to maintain their dominance. Humanity's rapid advancement from chemical rockets to quantum drives represented everything the Council feared most. Meanwhile, on the Council homeworld Representative Prime, Thecamol received battle reports that defied everything he understood about military engagement. The human vessels should have been destroyed within the first hour of combat. Instead, they continued to inflict damage on Council forces while avoiding decisive engagement. Emergency Coordinator Velnash provided tactical updates that grew more disturbing with each report. Sir, the humans are using gravitational slingshot maneuvers to achieve velocities that our projections said were impossible. They're treating the entire solar system as a three-dimensional battlefield, while our forces attempt to maintain traditional formation flying. Tekmal felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on him. The Council had never faced an enemy that refused to fight according to established conventions. Worse yet, the humans seemed to thrive on chaos and uncertainty that would paralyze most civilized species. The turning point came when Captain Steve Parker executed a maneuver that would be remembered in military academies across the galaxy. The TCS Retribution used Jupiter's gravity well to accelerate to unprecedented velocity before striking the alien flagship with every weapon in its arsenal. The attack came from directly below the Council formation where no sensors expected to detect threats. Railgun projectiles and fusion missiles struck the Eternal Justice simultaneously, while the human warship disappeared behind Jupiter's bulk before alien weapons could return fire. The massive alien dreadnought shuddered under the impact as multiple hull breaches vented atmosphere and crew members into space. Admiral Quindar found himself fighting for survival aboard his own flagship as damage control teams struggled to maintain life support and propulsion. His perfect formation had collapsed into individual ship actions that favored human mobility over alien firepower. For the first time in Council military history, an inferior force was defeating a superior fleet through tactics and determination. The psychological impact of the battle reached beyond simple military considerations. Across the galaxy, Council member species watched combat reports with growing amazement as humans demonstrated capabilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about primitive civilizations. The careful balance of galactic power that had existed for millennia began to shift as species reconsidered their relationship with Council authority. Captain Julie Newton seized the moment when alien coordination finally broke down completely. The TCS Defiance led the remaining human vessels in a coordinated assault that targeted the alien command and control systems rather than attempting to destroy individual ships. Human strategy focused on disabling enemy capability rather than maximizing casualties. The final phase of the battle lasted only 30 minutes, but its effects would echo across galactic history. Admiral Quindar found his fleet scattered and damaged, while human vessels maintained their aggressive tactics despite suffering their own losses. The Council force that had expected easy victory instead faced the prospect of complete defeat at the hands of a supposedly primitive species. The end came not through military conquest, but through a communication that reached every ship in the solar system. Captain Jake Morrison broadcast on all frequencies using translation protocols that ensured every species could understand his message. To the Galactic Council, and all who serve its authority, Jake began his voice carrying across space to alien vessels and Council listening posts throughout the galaxy. You came here expecting to find a primitive species that would submit to your will. Instead, you found humanity. We are the children of a world that taught us to fight for survival against impossible odds. We have endured ice ages and plagues and wars that would destroy lesser species. We have turned our deadliest weapons into tools of exploration, and our greatest conflicts into lessons of cooperation. The message continued as Jake outlined humanity's position regarding galactic politics and Council authority. You have watched us for years and cataloged our weaknesses while planning our subjugation. But you made one critical error. You underestimated what it means to be human. We are explorers and warriors and builders of impossible dreams. We reached for the stars because that is what humans do. We refuse to be caged by those who think they know what is best for us. Admiral Quindar listened to the human declaration with growing understanding of the magnitude of this moment. These creatures were not just rejecting Council authority, but offering an alternative vision of galactic civilization based on independence rather than control. The broadcast concluded with words that would be quoted in diplomatic chambers for generations to come. The age of human isolation is over. We claim our place among the stars, and we will defend that place against any who would deny it. The galaxy is vast enough for all species to thrive without bowing to the authority of those who rule through fear. Humanity offers partnership to those who seek it and defiance to those who demand submission. The silence that followed lasted for several minutes, as the implications sank in across dozens of alien vessels. Then, slowly individual council ships began powering down their weapons and requesting permission to open diplomatic channels. The battle was over, but the real change was just beginning. On Earth, billions of humans learned that they were not alone in the universe, and that their species had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. The stars, that had always seemed distant and unreachable, suddenly held infinite possibilities for a species that had never learned to accept limitations. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and watched alien vessels withdraw from human space, while new ships approached under diplomatic flags. The Council had gone silent, not from arrogance, but from something they had not experienced in centuries. For the first time in galactic history, they faced a species that had developed beyond their control and refused to accept their authority. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and the universe would never be the same.